Welcome to another episode of Freedom Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Deese, and today I am joined by my amazing co-host,
guest co-host
and wife, Kristen Deese, who is the virtual CFO for the trade. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So things been busy?
Yeah. Personally and professionally.
Yeah.
So we just got back from vacation a little while ago. Took a cruise. That was fun. Mexico. Yay.
Do love
Good
Mexico.
times. Farm is moving along. We got our driveway got paved with actual asphalt, so no more gravel driveway. That's really exciting.
I never thought that I would be excited about a driveway.
I know. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
So that's cool. We have our first round of meat chickens are coming in a couple of weeks.
50 of them.
50 is the first time doing meat chickens.
Go big or go home, as I like to say.
We are rallying the troops. They have a couple of local friends that have done this before, and we've watched a ton of YouTube videos. So we feel partially prepared for that adventure. And then professionally, I've got an event coming up. I wasn't sure if you heard about it. Have you heard of the event coming up?
I have not. Can you tell me a little bit about?
A couple more weeks, about five or 6 weeks or so, doing a virtual CFO live event here in Pensacola on KPIs and leadership and all kinds of stuff. And it's a lot of work to pull an event off.
Well, there's so many moving parts, and people have questions, and then people are flying here, and food, and did you remember every detail?
Yes, lots of decisions that need to be made, and it's fun, but it's definitely a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And that's going to be exciting. We can talk about that a little bit more later in the episode, but the event is going to be amazing. The list of speakers and presenters are going to be great. And I say that, and I want to be careful about saying speakers, because really this is a workshop, right?
Yes. So it is designed to be a workshop. There is going to be parts of like instruction, I guess you could say, but then parts of like rolling up the sleeves and getting to work. It seems like every week or so, there's just like this next level of value that gets added onto the event and the time that we're going to be together. And I just am really, really excited about the wealth of knowledge and experience that's going to be in this room for 2 days that we're all going to be able to lean on is really, really, really exciting. Like if we were to add up all of the years of experiences of the pros that are coming in, we're probably at like 200 years of experience.
Bazillion. I was going to say a bazillion.
Really and truly.
I'm
super, super, super fired up about that, and really excited to be able to see our younger generation of business owners be able to soak up the knowledge bombs that are going to be dropped all over the place.
So it doesn't seem like that long ago we were the youngsters in the group.
Right.
And it's almost like we blinked, and that's not the case anymore.
I know.
I know. Every time I say how long we've been in the industry, I have to.
And you know what? So we've been in the industry for a long time, but we still, to some people, are youngsters too. There's people who have been in the industry for 30 and 40 years, 50 years. So we're about halfway through that journey, I guess you can say.
I like it. What a cool industry that we're in. There's so many, not just moving parts. That part of that can be fun. Part of that can be a complete pain. But think about how technology has shifted our business and our industry in the last 10 or 15 years, and how fast that's going to continue to ramp and change. I mean, we're barely scratching the surface of how AI is going to be involved in our industry and how much that's going to change. It's going to be, I don't know. I think it's really cool.
I mean, just a year ago, I was having conversations with business owners about being nervous to implement AI in chatbots or implementing it in answering the phone because of the off-putting feeling it might give to the customers to be communicating with AI.
Yeah.
That was like a year, maybe 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden, so fast, AI is like an everyday form of communication. People are so accustomed to it that it's not threatening anymore from that I don't want to deal with a robot. I want to deal with a human type thing. it just seems like in such a very short period of time, that perspective has changed for the better. I'm slow to adopt new things. I will admit that. I can remember I had a 35 millimeter camera for a really long time. And when the digital cameras came out, I was like, I don't want a digital camera. I want a camera that I can print out the pictures and look at the pictures and hold
And
them
of
in
course,
my
now
hands.
there's nowhere to print the pictures.
Right. So then I finally made the switch to a digital camera and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing in the world. I don't have to pay to get the pictures developed. Okay. Well, I mean, I was a little bit of a slow adopter on the AI thing too. And I didn't want to use ChatGPT to help write things because I wanted it to be me and authentic and whatever. And then this weird thing happened where I started using it and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool.
Well, and we've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, but the truth is AI is a tool that has to be used correctly, and it's not a end all be all product or service. And you think about, it wasn't that many years ago where anytime you called a business, you would kind of get this recording of, and what it would say, your call is being recorded and monitored for quality assurance. And when that first happened, people were really weird about being recorded. And now we don't even give it a second thought.
Yeah. Everybody's doing
why
it.
are you playing this? Can we move on? Like,
right.
No, because state law says you have to. But I think that, and I know this is not an AI conversation, but I think that as technicians are starting to utilize some of those tools, that pretty soon is going to be the next quality assurance monitored.
Not probably a little while ago, probably a year or so. I don't remember when. I remember reading probably in one of the forums or groups or somewhere that a company was struggling getting technicians to write legible, not write like handwriting, but like type in Service Titan specifically, legible descriptions of what they did on the job summaries. Mm-hmm. And so they basically had them all install ChatGPT, and they had the technician put all of their information into the AI software and then copy and paste what AI cleaned it up for them, and then copy and paste it and stuck it in their job summary. And I'm like, that's a great use of AI.
I think that was Richard Koberger.
Was it?
I think that's the first person I heard kind of utilizing that. And that was pretty early for ChatGPT to be introduced that way. But what a great tool if used properly.
Right, for sure.
Now, today's conversation wasn't not designed for AI, but I mean, it's so fast and changing. And I think it is always a good conversation to learn new. I'm taking a course right now to try to be better at engineering it and the questions and how do I get the information out of it? Because there's times when you use it and you're frustrated because you're like, that's not what I asked. So, speaking of which, at the event, Josh and Tersh from Service Business Mastery, they'll actually be there as well. And they're going to be talking about AI and they're going to have some free stuff that's really going to help elevate businesses. But, you got to be there to find out. That's all I'm going to say. Got to be there to find out. But today we're talking about the profit, like kind of the blind spot of profit. And I think that a lot of times as business owners, we get that tunnel vision of profitability, but we miss the things that like kind of the levers that really shift and adjust that the most. So I thought, what a great opportunity for us to talk about that.
So what I see and what we've seen for years and years and years, and we even did it ourselves, is we hustle and hustle and hustle to get that top number as high as we possibly can, that revenue number. And then we don't pay close enough attention to what's happening below that number. And then we look up and all of a sudden we're not profitable and we're a little bit surprised. And we're like, wait, how could we not be profitable? We're generating all this revenue.
Where all the money
did it all go?
Where'd
right.
It go?
So yeah, there's a handful of things that, might seem kind of obvious, but then there's a lot of things that kind of slide under the radar and you don't really realize it until all of a sudden you're in the middle of a cash crunch or your profitability is 2% and you're thinking it was going to be 20 and that kind of stuff.
Well, I have my pen and I'm ready to take some notes. So, more sales does not equal more profitability. True or false?
True.
True.
Also, busy is not productive.
or profitable.
Not always. Not
Yeah.
always. Just because sales are increased does not mean profit is going to be increased. So that would be one thing that you could just kind of check off the list.
I wrote false.
Okay. Wait. What was the question? It was true or false?
True or false?
Higher sales does not mean higher profitability.
Yeah, more sales equals more profitability.
Oh, false. I heard you wrong.
You said false.
I said true the first time.
Oh, well, you've lost all credibility.
Okay, you know what? I'm visual. I have to see the question, not hear it.
Sorry. Yeah, I think the term of I'm going to mess it up, but like the sin, more sales covers all sins.
False.
Well, so people use it as a true, and it's not, and it can cover up some sins for sure, but it certainly does not fix.
It doesn't, and
fix any sins.
And it has a great potential of actually magnifying issues that you already are having. So if there's some fundamental issues that you're having in the company currently that you may or may not even really know about, and then you go out and you pile a whole bunch of sales or revenue on top of it, really what it could potentially do is magnify the problems that you're already having. Systems, that it's one of those things where if you don't really have good systems in place, then you can get by when you're small without really having intentional systems in place. But then when you start to grow and you start to get technicians and you start to run more calls and you start to generate more revenue, the lack of intentional systems in place actually magnifies itself and turns into a huge issue down the road.
So I want to highlight what you just said. You said intentional systems.
Yes.
So I think a lot of times what people don't realize is there's systems in every business.
Yep.
It's either intentional or they're not intentional.
Right.
And when they're not intentional, they are, for the most part, typically not helping you move the business forward.
They're holding you back for sure.
They are holding you back and costing you money and all the other things. Yes. So let's talk about what are some other levers? What are some things that you can do to really keep an eye on? And let's stick with the theme of rising sales because it's more fun to talk about when your sales are growing than when they're not. But what are some things to really keep an eye on that people can miss when their sales are growing? How do you make that calculate to the bottom line?
I mean, the very first kind of gate that you have to get through is gross profit margin. So when we're looking at gross profit margin, the two main pieces of that are going to be the technician labor, the materials, and a sales commission if you're paying a sales commission to whatever it is that you're selling. So if you can get through that gauntlet of cost and make it through the other side with like at least 50%, but really it needs to be more like 55 or more percent gross profit margin, that's going to be the first place that we look. If you are getting through cost of goods sold and you're left with 30% gross profit, then that's the first place that we're going to try to fix first. That's your biggest hole in the boat, is we got to be coming out of cost of goods sold with a strong gross profit margin.
All right. Two things you mentioned, and I would like you to go into a little bit more explanation. The first, you said gross profit margin, and then the other, you said gross profit.
Okay.
So I think there tends to be some confusion.
Yep.
And if you're not clear on it, then you might miss a number. But
okay,
break it down for us.
So gross profit is the dollars. Gross profit margin is the percentage of those dollars compared to overall revenue. So if you generate $100,000 in revenue, your gross profit margin is 55%, that's your percentage. Your gross profit is $55,000. So the gross profit is the dollars and the gross profit margin is the percent. Not to be confused with cost of goods sold, which is what you're taking out of revenue to get to your gross profit margin in the first place.
Very good. Hopefully that's very helpful. I know a lot of times people use those two, and sometimes they'll say something that doesn't match.
Right.
It's like, no,
they know what they're talking about. They just may not be picking the right vocabulary words, which, is understandable because it's numbers and financials and stuff.
Well, and again, I know we've talked about this multiple times, but I don't, there's very few business owners in our industry that had an accounting background when they started the business.
Right.
I can think of very, very few people. But for the most part, it was a technician turned business owner or some variation of that. But normally it's not an accountant turned.
Yeah. Well, and we like to keep everybody on their toes by not calling the same. We have multiple names for the same thing, right? So an income statement is the same thing as a profit and loss, but we like to use those interchangeably. Also, revenue, income, and sales are all the same thing from an accounting standpoint, but in Service Titan, revenue and sales are different things. So, we're keeping our jobs here. That's what we're doing.
All right. So we just talked about one of the big top reasons that can influence profitability. What are some others? Do you have maybe another example?
Yeah. So beyond your cost of goods sold or your gross profit margin not being high enough, another area, I mean, overhead in general is something that we want to pay attention to, but I will say that one of the bigger ones that can eat up the overhead would be administrative wages being too high as it relates to revenue. And there's like a size of the business. I think we might have talked about this a little bit last time. There's like a size of the business that you get to where your overhead labor is too high, but it really should only be temporary, because the point of bringing on additional overhead labor is so that you can be able to generate more revenue.
Yeah.
And if we bring on the extra overhead, but we're not generating more revenue, then that is going to be part of what's eating into our profits essentially, through wages. So that's usually an area where we can identify is someplace that we might be able to figure out how to get a little bit more efficient, and get a better profit margin there.
And I think that a lot of HVAC businesses struggle with this in that towards the end of the shoulder, that February, March, they're trying to bring on more people and train them. So you see that a lot, right?
Yeah, you see it seasonally with companies that are seasonal, like HVAC, but then you also see it in a year-round mode for companies who aren't seasonal when they get into that limbo of, well, I really need the phones to be answered like 10 hours a day. Like I need a live person to be answering the phone 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I need to make sure that I have somebody for coverage in case somebody goes on vacation or they're sick. And, I really could use somebody that is running parts to the job site and placing orders and entering POs into whatever our software system is. I really could use somebody that is managing our Facebook page and overlooking our marketing department. And I really could use somebody who's out there in the community going to these events and these chambers, right? Yeah. Like you see what's happening here, right? We get to this size of the company where like, man, I just really need another body to do this. Well, every body needs an hourly rate, and every hourly rate is going to go towards your admin overhead. And that's where we start seeing a lot of it get eaten up. And it's, again, we do get to a point where we need those positions and we need those tasks to be done, but we also have to know that in order to bring on another administrative position, whether it's part-time or full-time, we have to be able to have a plan to increase revenue at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with making sure as you're bringing people on, being clear about what the expectations are and what a win looks like. So, if you bring somebody in, let's say to run parts, was one of your examples, like to run parts, then what profitability, what percentage, what KPI is that going to positively affect? And then you need to watch it and make sure that you're not 3 months down the road and it's not doing what you hoped it did, what it was going to do. And then you need to wash it.
And I created a calculator, and the cost of a new hire calculator. Which I'm happy to give out. And
we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. Sure. So what you do is you go down through and you basically fill in the numbers of, this is how much it's going to take to get this person onboarded, and this is how much we're going to pay them per hour and how often we think they're going to work and so on. And it basically gives you a number of how much it costs per month to have that person on the team. So when we do it from a technician standpoint and we say, how much is it going to cost us to get a new technician? It's easy to be able to go down through that and say, okay, well, at the end of 2 months, I need them to be at least generating $6,000
Right.
a month or whatever it is to be able to at least pay for themselves. Well, when we talk, we can run the same calculator for an administrative position, but then the conversation comes to, okay, well, we just paid for this person to be on board for 30 days. Let's say it cost $10,000 in total. What did we get for that $10,000? Was that a good investment? Is that an investment I'm willing to make again next month? Were we able to cut expenses times 3 somewhere else because of this position? Were we able to generate more revenue because of this position? Whatever. So it kind of puts a number to that. Now, you also have to be able to make sure that you are not running your administrative team so ragged and so thin that they're on burnout, because then you come onto a totally different cost, which is you're having to replace administrative people too quickly. And we all know that there's an onboarding expense that goes along with getting a new employee at all trained up. So you kind of have to find that balance of not paying too much in overall wages, but not burning your people out either.
So you want to be efficient.
Yeah.
Like that's, you want to be efficient, but not wear everybody out. So I want to go back to this calculator for a minute, because the calculator is really a cool tool. And I'm curious, because I know that a lot of businesses that you work with are obviously hiring. And I know you do this exercise with companies that you work with. How often does a business owner go through that worksheet and go, oh, that's not as much as I thought it was?
Never.
Never, right?
Yeah.
Like we always go, oh yeah, we need to hire a new person. It would be, like they make X amount of dollars an hour. So, I mean, like in 2 weeks, they'll be like, whatever. And you start going through it and you're like, well, that's one cost. And no, they're probably not going to generate money in 2 weeks. And, so you may not know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyways. Do you have about a percentage of what a new hire costs percentage wise? So if they make $30 an hour over the, over the course of 90 days.
There's several variables that go into, especially that first month, because there's additional onboarding costs in the first month that you incur to bring on a new person than you do on the months moving forward. The other thing that we take into account on the calculator is workers' comp, because workers' comp for technicians is significantly higher than it is for administrative people. So workers' comp for administrative people, somebody who is sitting at a desk, is minimal, and it's going to have a minimal impact on that initial cost. But for technicians, it's going to be relatively substantial. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a specific percentage above and beyond what their hourly rate necessarily is. And I have seen that first month training run anywhere from 10,000 to probably 17 to 18,000 in the first month. And then the second month, it's anywhere from 6 to 8,000, just depending on what
certainly it should be going.
It does. It
should be going down.
The second month does tend to drop just because there's a lot of only one-time expenses that you have in that first month when you're onboarding somebody. Like if it's a technician and you buy them uniforms, well, you're probably only buying that first set of uniforms, depending on what your policy is. And you should only see that expense that first month, and you wouldn't see that in the second month. So there's a handful of things that are only the one time, but yeah, it is always going to be higher than, well, I'm going to pay my CSR $20 an hour. It's going to cost you more than $20 an hour to have them.
I know the first time I saw that worksheet, I was like, man, that is insane. How do they get access to the calculator?
They can email me. If they email me at Kristen@KristenDeese.com, I am more than happy to send a copy of the calculator along with a little explanation video on how to specifically use it.
Oh, beautiful. All right. So I'll make sure, and it's KRISTEN at Kristen Deese, DEESE.com.
Yes.
And I'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. But that calculator is a really amazing tool for sure. We actually did a podcast last year at some point that was about the cost of a hire.
Yes.
That's got some pretty good information. So I would definitely go check that pod. And I don't know the episode off the top of my head. I guess maybe I should. I don't know.
I don't think you need to memorize them all.
No? Okay,
No.
good. Because I never would. Memory's not my strong suit.
Or numbers.
Or numbers. We're about to talk about my good qualities.
Sales.
No, I'm just kidding.
People
We're not.
influencing.
Okay, so profitability, the blind spots. So, okay, so we talked about gross profit. Obviously, that ties into, labor materials, cost of hiring. Do you have another one that most business owners completely overlook or don't think about when they think about profitability?
Well, so there is a slight difference between profitability and cash flow. So this is going to be kind of partially related to both of that, but the amount of debt that you carry in the business and the payments associated with those debts sometimes can eat into both profitability and cash flow. So when we're recording payments to debt, the interest portion of the payment gets recorded as an expense on your P&L/income statement, which will eat into your net income because that's an expense. And then the principal payment of that loan goes towards the balance sheet to reduce the amount of your liability. But at the end of the day, the whole payment comes out of your bank account. So even though we don't see the whole payment as an expense on your P&L, the whole payment is still coming out of the bank account.
Yeah, the cash
is gone.
Leaving.
Right. So it kind of bleeds into profitability and cash flow at the same time. But if you have one or two truck payments, you're not going to see a huge difference. If you have an entire fleet of vehicles that you're paying on and a whole bunch of equipment on top of it, it will make a massive difference on your P&L between the interest and the cash flow that's going out with it. So that sometimes can be a little bit of a blind spot. I know that there's a lot of times that we can justify bringing on an additional vehicle payment because that vehicle is out there generating revenue, right? So it's relatively easy to be like, well, it's not a big deal that we're making another payment because it's going to be out there generating revenue, and how much revenue does it need to generate in order to be able to justify the cost? So there is a right way to kind of budget for it, but it takes just having that level of awareness that that's an expense. And then I think the other big thing that has the potential of eating that overhead is advertising.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Advertising has the potential of costing the company a lot of money. And it's so interesting because I have clients who spend less than 1% on marketing and advertising. And I have some that are spending 22% on marketing and advertising. Yep. And it just depends on where they are in their journey, how long they've been in business, how good their marketing companies are, if they're paying a marketing company or if they're trying to do it themselves. I will say that those that are trying to do themselves don't do as good of a job as the ones who have marketing companies. It might be cheaper, but if their board's not full, then are they really getting a good ROI?
Well, yeah, it's like being very good and being very good at that one thing, and marketing is a whole nother animal.
Right.
Like it's just such a different animal. And you think about most people that are in our industry started as a technician, turned a wrench, decided they want to do it, and they struggle with accounting. The same is true with the marketing side of it too, because they didn't grow up in that.
Well, and here's the other thing that I see too with marketing is we'll go down through a financial and we'll say, holy cow, marketing was 15%. What happened? It's easy to blame the marketing company and say they spent the money or they didn't generate the rate, blah, 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 or whatever. Yep. But it's harder to say, well, they were generating good leads, but our call booking rate sucked this month. Or we were booking the calls, but our conversion rate was awful. Or our average ticket was awful. So I will say that if you're going down through your financials and your marketing spend is out of whack, look at yourself first before you blame the marketing company.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, obviously you still have to, hold the marketing.
Trust but verify.
Right.
Have a set of KPI. I mean, because really, and marketing, whatever it is, they're still an extension of your business. So you still have to have parameters of how you're gauging if they're doing a good job, because you have to have that in every aspect of your business. And if any aspect of your business you're looking at and you're like, well, I feel like you're off, get a number to it. I won't say my opinion, but your feelings don't matter. The number, the KPI, the scoreboard, well, I feel like I won. You didn't win. You lost. And here's how we know it.
Yeah. So, yep.
All right. So shifting it. Well, any final thoughts? Because I wanted to shift gears just briefly to talk about the event coming up. I know we've talked about it a lot. We're very excited. It's really cool to be able to introduce people to our area and our community, which is fun. But any final thoughts before we shift over to that?
Nope.
None.
Let's shift.
Let's shift some gears. So, Power Profit Workshop, is coming up. This one is going to be May 15th and 16th here in Pensacola, Florida. If you want more information, powerprofitworkshop.com. I'm really excited about this, but this was a passion of yours. And I wanted to kind of ask this question, like, what made you want to do this style workshop? Like, we go to a lot of events, we speak at a lot of events. Why?
What's the why? The why. Well, first of all, I love to work with people in person. Right. So there's so much that you can gain from working in person for a period of time. I think it's extremely important, and we have experienced this in our own business over and over and over again. It is so important to remove your physical body from your business when you want to work on something that's important. You have to get out of the shop and go somewhere. If you can get out in the shop and you can go work with a group of other people who are doing the things that you're doing and are different levels than what you are, whether they're not quite as far as you are or they're further ahead than you, you can turn back and give a hand to the person who's behind you, and you can get some incredible knowledge from the people that have already experienced the things that you are struggling with. So there's extreme benefit from that standpoint. I also really enjoy the smaller group setting of it because I totally understand that numbers aren't the business owner's strong suit. And I know that we've talked about this before, but to be able to spend the amount of time that we need to spend on a topic until everybody is good and then move on, you can't do that in these big conferences because it's like
keep moving.
You have to keep moving. The title, the content, everything's already like set to the T. And so, if you're struggling in it, you just might continue to struggle. And so that's not what I'm trying to accomplish here. I also really love the idea of being able to provide content and value, and then also like have everybody leave with a really good implementation plan. Like, I'm going to get this knowledge, but then I really have a good action plan. To actually take it back and make it useful.
Yeah, because that, big conferences, and anybody who's attended big conferences, and they're great. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But you have to be very careful about checking yourself a little bit on how many, I can only apply these 2 or 3 things that I can take back. But then you're only getting a small piece of what the information is. And I think in these workshops, they're going to be able to get.
Yeah. So you go wide, but not deep on conferences like that. Right. Like, you have a really, really wide, different topics and things that are being discussed and taught and talked about, but you don't really have the time or space to go deep on any of them. And so what happens? We have our notebook, we have pages and pages and pages of notes and things we want to do. And we get back
in that cabinet
right. Then we get back and we may or may not even do one of them.
Right.
And again, we still need to go to conferences like that. There's so much benefit that comes from that kind of stuff, even when it's just being around other business owners and in the industry and whatever, seeing all the vendors and things. But when you can do a workshop style event like this, where we have a more narrow swath of topics that we're going to be talking about, but we're going to have the time to go deep on them, that's where all the good stuff is. That's where the good stuff is, that you can actually feel like you have a deep enough knowledge of it to be able to actually like successfully implement it.
Yeah. It's going to be fantastic. And and then there's also some, work hard, play hard. So there's, tell us a little bit about some cool stuff that's going to also be along with the event.
So the evening before that Wednesday, the evening before, we'll have a little bit of a happy hour just right there at the hotel, meeting and greeting everybody, a little bit of early check-in. So that's going to be just kind of a nice little welcoming, a reception, I guess you could say. And then Thursday night, we are, so Pensacola's part of their public transportation out on the beach is trolleys, not trolleys on a track like New Orleans, but like trolleys on wheels, but they look like trolleys. They're going to come pick us up at the hotel on Thursday evening and take us to the Blue Wahoo Stadium, which is our local baseball team here. Blue Wahoos is playing the Trash Pandas, which just cracks me up. And so we're going to go enjoy a game and eat some good food there at the stadium. And then we'll have our workshop on Friday. And then for anybody who's sticking around, one Friday a month in downtown Pensacola, we have this thing called Gallery Night. And it's where all the businesses on the main street, basically the street gets shut down to car traffic. And all the vendors or all the places along that street come out into the sidewalk and out into the roads, and they have tents and food and music and alcohol and all kinds of wonderful things and art. And it's
So much
just,
fun.
it's really cool. It's a really neat cultural experience here in Pensacola. And then of course we have the beaches. So
yeah. So anybody who's never been to Pensacola, this is going to be a really great experience because you're going to get so much of Pensacola in a very short period of time. And anybody who's never been here, we have a lot of flights now. Like it used to be, we didn't have a whole lot of flights. There's a lot of direct flights, and nowhere in the country should it take you more than one leg to get here.
Correct. That's right. I mean, you could catch 2 layovers, but don't do that.
You need to
don't do that.
Find another agent or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's direct flights to most of the major cities. So yeah, looking forward to hanging out and seeing everybody. And again, we've got some amazing guest presenters that are going to be there to help really move the needle. And gosh, do we want to say who it is or no? No. Go to powerprofitworkshop.com. Their pictures are on there, and check us out on social media. You'll see them posting some stuff on there too. So
yep.
Whew, that was a lot of info.
That was
a lot of good stuff. So thank you for coming and hanging out. And thank you for either listening or viewing us on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes.
So that as we have things come up, you'll know about them.
You can be in the know.
You'll be in the Cool Kid Club. So thank you guys for showing up, and we appreciate it.